Hello and welcome to Beyond the Bio. This week I am joined by the amazing Lottie, who has been on the show how many times?
I think this is my third.
Third time.
I know, regular.
Old hand. Yeah, we'll have to get you like a co-host credit. And it's really exciting this week because this is the first time that we've gone over officially to video in our own Moja studio.
I know, big things coming, exciting.
Exciting times indeed. And I wanted to get you back on the show again this week to talk about a couple of things because you've recently just come back from the podcast show down in London.
Yeah.
And so I thought that you would be able to share some learnings from that, maybe tell us what's coming up in the world of podcasting. But as well, it's all about practicing what we preach, isn't it? Around going to networking events that are relevant to you in your industry. So let's start off with why you went in the first place.
Yeah, so the podcast show, if anybody doesn't know, it's a big expo in London. So they have lots of stalls with the big podcasting companies that are around at the minute. So podcast recording companies, they've got people with like soundproofing equipment and they're kind of showing off what they're doing. And at the same time, there's about 4 different talks going on at any one time. So it's quite overwhelming because you're like, what do I want to go and see? Because there's so many amazing speakers. So yeah, it's basically going to watch these speakers and finding out what the thought leaders in podcasting world are thinking that's going on, basically.
So, sounds good.
Yeah.
Were there any strong themes that were coming out from the event?
I think video is always a big one in podcasting. People talking about whether it is the future of podcasting, whether it's something completely different. I think the one thing that I took from seeing people talk about video is that it very much depends on what you want from your podcast and thinking about your audience as well. So are your audience going to be the type of people who are watching the videos? Obviously, they're really good for social clips as well. But if you want to stick to just doing audio only, there are ways around doing social clips that you don't need the cameras in the studio for. But again, podcasting is very unique to you as a host as well.
And did they give any stats around how many are video versus audio now? Or
I think it's very different depending on the audience. So I think you see like the Gen Zs coming through, they're more likely to watch podcasts on YouTube, but it completely differs. Yeah.
Are you converted? Are you up for the video challenge now?
I think for some of definitely. I think they are. It just brings the podcasts to life a bit more, doesn't it? But I also think I do believe that they are very different to the audio only ones. So
it makes me feel old because I consume podcasts on audio, and the odd time that I'll watch one maybe on YouTube or something, I just find that I get a bit distracted.
Yeah, but then some of them have now evolved into kind of, they use the visual aspects and show clips and stuff like that. So
there's so many different ways you can use video, I guess, isn't there? Because you could still be audio first, if you like, but then use the video clips to promote the show.
Yeah, but then you've got to be careful because if you're just doing it for video, you've got to think of people who are only listening audio. So it's a bit to think about, but I think that once you get that nailed on the head, then yeah, it's good to know that.
Good to know. So what else was covered at the podcast show?
So I went to a few of the marketing ones and how to market podcasts. And
any top tips from that?
Yes. So we get a lot of clients who are really keen to grow their audience. And what I saw in one of the talks was that basically we should be putting as much time and effort into the marketing of the podcast as we are the actual podcast itself.
Interesting.
And so obviously we've been talking about social clips as well that we use either for audio or video. But quite often when you're scrolling on social media, if you see the clip from the podcast, you're not directly going to go and listen to the podcast. So I think the best place to focus your energy is by putting a little audio snippet on somebody else's podcast. So it's building up relationships with other podcasters, recording a little audio snippet of your podcast episode and sharing it with them so that they can play it as kind of like an advert at the start. So that when they're listening to that podcast, they're already on the podcast listening platform. They can then, after they've finished, flick over to your podcast and think, "Ooh, that sounded interesting."
So that was one of the things that they were saying works well.
Yeah. And I guess as well, this works when you invite guests onto your podcast. If you do, not everybody does, But if you do, and they've got a podcast, make sure that they're promoting their podcast and talking about what they've spoken about. So then ideally, when you do a podcast swap and you feature on theirs, you can then also promote your own podcast. So it's about kind of being strategic in people who have got listeners that will be similar to yours or the kind of similar target audience, going on their podcasts and sharing what you're doing. And hopefully that'll convert to them listening to yours as well.
Okay, something for us to try out.
Yes, yeah.
Any other advice that they had around the marketing side of things?
A big one that we focus on as well already is getting the name right and the artwork right as well, because you want to be making sure that the name and the artwork is going to be, if somebody looks at the artwork, they're going to get a kind of idea about what it's about. You know, if you've got big, bright colours and a funny picture of you on the front, but then you're talking about really dark, serious topics of conversation, I think the podcast artwork is going to be the thing that people see first. So it needs to be kind of reflective of what that podcast is going to be about.
Did they say anything about how it's good still to have different artwork per episode? Is that still a thing?
They didn't say that, but I think that what we've found, especially here, is that the guests are more likely to share it if there's a picture of them on the artwork. So I think that's something that is definitely like good to put into practice, is to change the artwork per episode, maybe with a picture of the guest on it, so that they are more likely to share it, I think. After that
makes sense. And I read definitely somewhere that the podcast platforms like that as well, because you're updating something else when you're uploading the episode.
Yeah, so like changing the algorithms kind of thing. And it makes it look a bit better when you're scrolling through, and it differentiates the episodes a bit more.
Yeah, true. It's easier to find.
Yeah,
specific
definitely.
episodes, I know that. Who was a standout speaker for you from the show?
So there's obviously loads. I mean, if anybody's read the Moja newsletter, they'll know that I loved Steve Backshall holding his 10-foot boa constrictor snake. Yeah, just because he is on TV when I was growing up, and then the fact that he had a live reptile in the studio to advertise his podcast was interesting.
And for our older viewers or listeners, who is this guy? 'Cause me and Rachel did not know who he was.
No, I think my dad said he watched a programme about him recently. So I think he just is basically a wildlife presenter on TV. Okay. So he does a lot of wildlife shows and different things like that. And
what was his link to the podcast show? Has he got a podcast?
Yeah, so he's got a podcast coming out about wildlife, wild animals, with 2 other women. And so he was just basically promoting that, but he did the whole the 3 of them did the whole 30-minute speech with this snake hissing in their ears. So
memorable.
It was interesting. Yeah, memorable,
good,
definitely.
Good
promotion, because I'm going to tune in now. Who else was there? There was a really interesting one, Nish Kumar, the comedian. Okay. He does a podcast in the UK called Pod Save the UK. It's about politics. And they were talking, so he was on a panel with somebody from America and somebody from Italy, and they were having a discussion about how podcasts can sway political decisions in countries.
Very topical.
Which is topical, quite scary, and opens up a whole debate about how censored, if they should be censored, and if they shouldn't.
That's so interesting, because I know that Dan Prissy, who's previously been on Beyond the Bio, he did some really interesting posts over, I can't remember when it was, a few months back when the US elections were on, and he was talking a lot about how many podcast hours Trump had clocked up versus Kamala Harris, and he believed the same thing.
Yeah.
So interesting.
So I think, I think it opens up big debates, and then I guess we'll see how it plays out in this country as well, because obviously podcasting is a lot bigger in the US, I think.
Though I can't imagine any of our political leaders really getting into podcasting,
no.
But maybe they'll surprise us, and we'll see. Let's see how it goes. So in terms of networking, did you get to meet any cool people?
Yeah, so I chatted to a few people that were, they had different programs and stuff that you can use in terms of cleaning up sound quality and that kind of thing. So the more nerdy side of the more nerdy side of podcasting. But it's just great to talk to other people and see what they're doing. Another woman I spoke to, and she was doing her own podcast, and she was talking about like how she needs to advertise hers and why she started it and that kind of thing. So it was just nice to be speaking to different people in all different stages of podcasting. And yeah, how
Was
they're
it
all getting
busy?
on.
Did lots of people go?
Lots of people, yeah. It's really, so there's people from the big organisations like Spotify, Apple, BBC, but then there's also people who have either just love listening to podcasts or they've started making their own just as a side hobby kind of thing. So it's a massive range of people, and it is huge, yeah.
So in terms of actions as a result of attending, is there anything that you want to focus on or explore a bit more since you got back?
I think my focus is going to be on marketing strategies around podcasts, getting something tangible that people can, so that they have got the toolkit ready to help promote their podcasts further.
That's a good idea. So like some sort of toolkit type thing, so something practical that they can follow step by step maybe?
Yeah, and if it is something where they want to record a little snippet to go alongside somebody else's podcast, then obviously help out there and create those. So yeah,
that sounds like some good actions.
Yeah.
So would you recommend people attend next year?
I would, yes. If you like podcasting or if you have a podcast, it's very interesting. And also because I said there's so many talks going on, I mean, there was loads of people there. Lulu was there, the singer.
What?
She's doing a podcast, I think. So yeah, there was loads of different people there, loads of different talks. So I think everybody could gain something from it. If they're interested in podcasting.
I look forward to hearing Lulu's podcast.
I didn't see that talk, but I just saw that she was on the lineup. I was like, random. But.
It would be fascinating to see this time next year who launched their podcasts that was talking about it and who's still going. Because consistency is a big thing that we talk about a lot, isn't it? You have the idea and you're excited and you're raring to go, but actually there is quite a bit to do it, particularly if you do it yourself. So let's see what 2026 brings. Awesome. Well, I'm really glad that you were able to attend the podcast show and that you have lots of insights that you were able to bring back to the team at Moja and also to our clients as well. Hopefully it's inspired a few of our listeners and viewers to see what is available for them to go and hang out at for their industry as well. If anyone listening hasn't come across you, Lottie, then for one, they need to go back and listen to some previous episodes because this is your third time. And actually, just as a recap, we did the first one around podcasting basics. So if anyone is listening and is thinking about doing their own show, that's a really great episode. I often guide people to go and have a listen to that one because it's really helpful for people to get set up. And then I think the second one we did was around trends.
And I'll probably be back to do another trends of 2025.
Excellent. I can't wait for that. Exciting. But if they haven't come across you as yet, where's the best place for them to find you?
LinkedIn, so I'm on there, Lottie Steele with an E on the end.
Excellent, and we'll make sure that we pop a link to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes as well.
Perfect.
Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, it would be mint if you could like, subscribe, and leave a review on your favourite platform. See you next week.